Hey everybody, this is the 10-gallon tank I've had sitting out on my back porch. I've shot a few videos of it recently, leaking some water. The reason it's out here is because it already had a leak in it and it was on its way out to the trash can. I've just never actually gotten it that far. It's still sitting on the porch, and I've had a few questions about it. Two main questions. Question number one is, how can this tank survive outside in the winter with ice in it? Doesn't the glass break? And the answer to that is a resounding yes, it does. I just tried to lift it up to check underneath of it, and I can't lift it up because the whole bottom is just broken glass. The whole bottom's just going to drop out if I try to pick it up. And I even looked, and there's a few cracks on the side panel here. So this is destroyed. It's got broken glass on multiple panels at this point. But the other question I get about this tank on a regular basis when I shoot video of it is, do I plan on fixing it and doing some repairs on it? And for that, we're going to go inside where it's a little bit warmer, and we're going to have a little chat about whether or not I think it's worth repairing tanks like this. So the short answer is no, I'm not going to repair it, and no, I don't think it's worth repairing it. So I've been asked about that a lot in the past, and I've always wondered whether or not it was worth repairing even larger tanks. But when you get down to tanks like a 10-gallon tank, the cost of replacing that is so low that to me it simply isn't worth bothering with the hassle of repairing it. If you wanted to do it because you wanted to just experiment with fixing an aquarium and you wanted to just dabble in the hobby, it would be an afternoon project or something. I'm not discouraging it. I'm not saying don't do it. I think that would be a fun project for somebody to try. It's just not something I'm interested in doing. And the cost of getting a new piece of glass, the time it would take, so on and so forth. I can go to Walmart and get a brand new 10-gallon aquarium for $12 or $13. It's just not worth doing the repair unless you're doing it for the sake of doing the repair, you know, just for something to do, something to tinker around with. I checked the other day before I shot this video. I was thinking about this the other day, and I went online and looked. In fact, it was yesterday, and PetSmart, I believe it's PetSmart, has 10-gallon tanks on sale right now for $2.67. Of course, they were sold out, but $2.67. I mean, that's obviously something just to get you in the door, and then you've got to buy all the other accessories and whatnot. But that's not the point of this video. The point is it worth repairing a $10 or 10-gallon tank? And it really isn't, because you can get them really cheap. You can go to you know, thrift stores and stuff like that. You can usually find them cheap, but oddly enough, you can get 10-gallon tanks new cheaper than I've seen them in thrift stores on occasion, which just blows my mind. I don't know why, but sometimes you see them in thrift stores for, you know, $15, $20 for a 10-gallon tank, and you can get them a lot cheaper than that, especially if you wait for them to go on sale. Now, when I was looking, I did see that they had 20 long tanks for $9.99, again sold out, but 20 longs for $9.99 on sale. I think they were regularly $27 or something like that, but still $25, $27 for a 20 long. To me, that would not be worth repairing it. It would simply be a matter of going out and buying a new one when I had the opportunity, if I really needed to replace it. Now, if I got into a tank that was larger but not huge, say a 55-gallon tank, then I would start getting worried about not being an engineer. And, you know, when you're dealing with a 10-gallon tank, even the amount of pressure pushing on that glass on the inside of a 10-gallon tank is probably a lot more than the average person might think. When you get inside of a 55-gallon tank, that is a lot of water pressure holding, you know, being held together by that glass and by the seam. And again, I'm just not so sure I'd want to be risking, you know, trying my hand at seeing if I can put together one of these tanks. So I personally would not want to do a 55-gallon tank, but financially, now you're probably start getting into where it might be a little more feasible from a financial point of view. If you're just trying to save some money, maybe you've got an old 55-gallon tank, you can cannibalize, take one of the end, you know, cut the end pane off and use that as when you're, you know, you repair one or something like that. Now you might be talking about saving some money, because a 55-gallon tank, you know, you're talking about maybe $100 or something to go out and buy one of those. And then of course, when you get into larger tanks, the price goes up exponentially. Now, the pressure also goes up, and the, you know, having to know what you're doing and the thickness of the glass and all that kind of stuff goes up as well. I've had people ask me advice on how to build, you know, 75-gallon tanks. Do you think this glass is thick enough or whatever? I don't know. Don't ask me. I'm not an engineer. I have no idea how thick the glass has to be on a 75-gallon tank. I don't know how much silicone needs to get put down in the seam, and so on and so forth. I will say, though, that for people that reseal tanks, when you're talking about the seal in an aquarium tank, the seal is created where the two pieces of glass meet. It's not that bead of silicone you can see on the inside of the tank. And in fact, when I first started keeping fish, that bead of silicone on the inside annoyed me because I always felt it was unnecessary and it looked like somebody just left their poor workmanship behind. And I would always cut that out. So I had square seams on the inside of my tanks, and none of my tanks ever leaked when I did that. I always used to cut the silicone out of the inside of my tanks, and none of it leaked. If it's sealed properly, there should be no gaps between where the glass meets the glass. That's where the seal is created. The smooth on the inside, where somebody ran their finger down to create that little bead on the inside, that's added protection and it makes it look more finished and so on and so forth. But to be done properly, the real seam is where the two pieces of glass meet. And if you look at those really carefully before you buy your aquarium, sometimes you will see where they're not quite done right. They have little gaps or air bubbles in those little seams. I always avoid those tanks. I look at tanks, especially larger tanks, and I make sure that when you look down that edge of that piece of glass where those two pieces of glass meet, you don't see air bubbles and gaps or anything like that, because that's where the seal is done. So if you are resealing a tank because it's leaking, I don't recommend going in and just putting a bead in the corner. If you're really going to reseal a tank, you need to remove that pane of glass, clean all the silicone off, get it completely stripped down, and then have it a perfect seam where they match perfectly with silicone in there, and that curing together is what's going to give you your seam and your seal, and your strength and rigidity and all that kind of stuff comes from that seam. So again, more than I'm worried about, especially when it comes to something like a 10 or 20 gallon tank or whatever, just not worth it to me. Not ever really been interested in the mechanics behind putting fish tanks together or the construction process or anything. You know, just not really my thing, not my interest in the hobby. But that brings me to another topic, which we will be talking about in an upcoming video, about what it is you want to get out of the hobby and what your goals are, because we all have different ideas of what fish keeping involves and what our goals are and what we'd like to learn and so on and so forth. So we'll have a video coming up soon where we discuss that and just kind of talk about the idea of, you know, the hobby means different things to different people, and that's okay. So thanks for watching this one. Hope you enjoyed. Make sure you're subscribed, and I will see you real soon on the next one.